These are the most common questions that business owners ask us as we've worked with thousands and thousands and continue to work with business owners, helping them scale to their first or next 10 million in revenue. We're answering your questions today on this episode of Business Builders. So if you have a question, drop it in the comments. We will answer it. We might even do a whole video on it. And we want to make sure that your questions get answered because while common sense isn't as common as it should be, many of these questions are very common, but the answers can be hard to find because here's the truth in the space of getting help to scale your business. There are a lot of gurus who say they know that how to scale your business, but they've never scaled any business other than their own business, which is built on the offer of scaling your business. And when you pay them to scale your business, you're really scaling their business. That's not us. We are business owners and we learned the hard way how to grow businesses, our own businesses. Then we help business owners scale theirs. And now that's our mission, to help scale purpose-driven businesses and help you do it without sacrificing what matters most: your family, your health, your sanity, or losing your hair. Or in my case, that's already done. So I'm not really worried about it. Welcome to Business Builders. We're going to jump in here. And we asked everyone who's live with us on Zoom. If you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, we go live on Zoom. So if you want to be a part of that and have that behind the scenes interaction, be able to ask questions in the pre-show that we do, make sure you check the description and you RSVP to save a seat for the live Zoom call, so you can catch it and you can be a part of that, because we also do Q&A, some at the end, but really beforehand is where you get the most, and you can ask your one-on-one questions and get one-on-one coaching from people who charge a lot of money, more than your lawyer does, for business advice. Come to YouTube and get it free. I'm serious. I had a client tell me one time, he asked me, "What's your hourly rate?" And I told him, and he said, "Dang, I don't pay my lawyer that much per month." And I said, "Yeah, because your lawyer doesn't make you money." So that's what we're here to help you guys do. All right, we're gonna dive into these questions. We asked everyone who's here with us live what their questions are. So the team has those questions. Let me go back to the chat and let's dive into the questions here. Let's see, more questions came through. So let's start here. Uh, Cody asked, when is the ideal time to add new employees based on scale? I'm going to pitch that over to Kirk because Kirk's our head of all things people and leadership development, and he is the best guy to answer that question.
Awesome. Great question. I'm actually going to um, borrow an answer from Tim by saying it depends. Um, the easy answer would be to give you some general stats that may or may not apply to your business. A rule of thumb that we generally go with for general business, and then we get more granular as we get into the industry itself and then the business itself. But looking at your revenue per employee. So that's a key metric that we look at, and then looking at your lifetime value for your clients. So what is that customer lifetime value? And then what is your revenue per employee? When is it ideal? When you have gotten to your bandwidth as far as your ability to be productive, and then reverse that by about 60 days. We know statistically it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to make a quality hire. You can throw a body at a cold seat very quickly, but if we go through a candidate journey, meaning we have a very dialed in, purposeful job description, and then we take the next step and we collect those candidate resumes, going through a two to three interview process, depending on the role, but 3 steps no matter what. It generally will take anywhere from 5 to 8 linear days to make that hire from the first time you interview to the last time that you're making a hiring decision, and then an additional 1 to 2 weeks to transition that person in. So doing the math, it's where's your revenue per employee or revenue per head if you are a solopreneur, or it's just ownership that's involved. So sometimes we see where there's 2 or 3 or 4 individuals involved, and maybe 2 of them are owners, maybe one's an owner and 3 are contractors. but looking at what that revenue is and then essentially dividing that by a full-time equivalent. What we deem a full-time equivalent is $85,000 in employer fringe. So if you're paying two people $42,000, if you're paying one person 85, or if you're paying three people the equivalent of 85, your 85 mark is a good benchmark to equate for full-time equivalency. I'm actually going to dovetail into the question right before that by Asha. How do I duplicate myself and Matt? So a little bit of context for the call. They're both owners and they're also a couple. They own Minton Media up in Oregon. So how do I duplicate myself? First step is understanding yourself, which sounds like a really soft, fluffy answer. But what is it that you do? And this is probably the hardest to do for business owners because what you do sometimes changes from day to day. And so as you look at your week, and I would recommend doing a time study as you're looking to duplicate. If you don't know either what a time study is, you don't have a great template for conducting a time study, reach out to Zach, let him know that you need that. We'll get you the resource to templatize your time for a 2-week period. So it would take a 2-week sample size of your time and how it's being allocated. And then looking at what are the tasks that I'm doing. And then we objectify those tasks. So think of it in the framework of a job description. You as a business owner, and I'll speak from my own experience as a business owner, in my business, I sit under 2.5 job descriptions. So there's the sales part that I think we all have to be in at some level in our business. And then there's the operational part. I'm in people, leadership, and alignment. So I sit in kind of this HR seat, a sales seat, and then a touch of operations. So what I would do in the duplication process is I would put objectives to each one of those roles. What does this sales role need to deliver to the organization in order to be profitable? Great, we've got those 8 to 10 bullet points for the objectives. Now I'm going to go to my sales role. What are the 8 to 10 objectives that sales role needs to deliver to the organization in order to be profitable? And then we go through this process, and as you're starting to delineate which one is the most profitable for me to be sitting in, then I go to duplicate, whether I bring in an outside candidate or I look at somebody that is inside of my organization but underutilized for their competencies. And underutilization may be in a smaller company, it might be a marketing stakeholder. In some companies, it might be a operations stakeholder. We have a larger client that they have an operations stakeholder that has bandwidth because the operations side of their business, while valuable, only takes up about 40% of their usable time. So as you look at, I need to objectify what it is that I do as a business owner into individual roles, and then which one is least valuable to the organization for me to be sitting in. And then as you go through that process, you look to hire somebody for the less valuable of your two roles. Value, not necessarily correlated solely to revenue, because you may be the best operational stakeholder and the best salesperson because you're the only one. Looking at it, if I leverage my time operationally, can I operationalize and systematize the business better to grow efficiencies, aka profitability, or does it look best for me to be in the operations seat and outsource or hire on the next salesperson with a job description that is very akin to what they need to execute because I know it's possible inside of my organization? With that being said, I want to tee up Tim to add any additional financial layering to my answers, just to build out the context of the answer from two different perspectives, both the people and operations side as well as the finance.
No, Kirk, I think we've been doing this long enough that I think you hit both aspects well enough. From a financial end, as we start hiring and you start trying to duplicate yourself, it's understanding what is the opportunity cost. And again, what I mean by that is if I separate myself from one skill set in the business and I have to hire it out, what's that cost? Where am I going to find that revenue elsewhere to support it? And again, from an efficiency standpoint, it's understanding that everybody in the business, every cost in the business is there so the business is more profitable. It does more, it's more efficient. And so as you understand that I am hiring this person and they're going to cost me $85,000 in fringe benefits, the payroll and taxes, that means that they need to generate, depending on my business and the metrics I've established, 3 to 4 times that.
Yep.
So what's the conversation when that doesn't happen? What is the timeline of, okay, I've hired this person, they're not hitting the metrics that I've set. When do I remove them from my ecosystem so that my business ecosystem doesn't drastically change to a point where I'm no longer profitable? Oftentimes we see it so frequently that people will get added to an ecosystem or assets will get purchased and brought into an ecosystem that have costs, but then the business doesn't have the desired impact and they don't pivot. They don't reorganize and restructure so that they can return back to an equilibrium where they were profitable. And so they just operate at the new status quo and they are no longer as efficient as they were, which means their asset, their business is not as profitable and it's not projecting to push forward faster or at the same pace that they currently were. Everyone in the business is designed to hit targets and hit revenue targets. If they're not doing that, it's the question, do we need to keep them? Which is a longer form question that we can pivot back to Kirk of how do we manage that?
Yeah, so it's vitally important as you listen to the answer that Tim just provided that you have a predetermined pivot point. So for some roles, that's going to be 60 days. Some it's going to be 90, some it's going to be 180, depending on the role. And for instance, a technology or IT sales role, those are longer processes of a sales timeline. So maybe there is a 180-day pipeline building phase to where you need to know where your stop loss is and where your pivot point is, but that needs to be predetermined before you onboard this new person in an effort to duplicate your own success. With that, I'm going to shift over to our next question where can I find my ideal clients to build those relationships? And I'm going to send this over to AJ to answer, and then I'll come in on the back end because I think this is actually a two-dimensional question in the sense that I know the question is geared towards clients, but I also want to answer that because we get a lot of questions, which is one of ours actually, about where do I find great people? So with that, I'll throw it over to AJ for the client side, and then I'll come back for the internal candidate side.
So here's what's really important to understand about client acquisition. Everything is based on currency. I like to say that there are three primary currencies in business. There's the first, there's the true, and there's the new. The first currency of business is attention. The true currency is relationship, and then the new currency is connection. When there's so much noise in the marketplace and nothing is truly unique anymore, outside of creating authentic and real connection. So we'll start with the relationship. Your goal in acquiring a client is really to establish a monetary transformational relationship with a client or customer that's based on a transaction of value. They're giving value in the form of money. You're giving value in the form of whatever service or product you're delivering. To do that, we just did a sales training this morning with our biz dev team, and the conversation I had was that it's like relationship. At the top of the funnel is what we call it. Top of the funnel, we're looking to get attention. We are needing to get in front of the right people, or use a courting relationship. You're trying to get in front of that person that you're pursuing. They don't know you. You don't know them. You know that they meet the criteria of attractiveness, the type of person, character. You know enough to understand this is the type of person that I'm looking for. I want to explore more here. Then you move to what's called the middle of the funnel, where now you know enough about each other to dive deeper. There's enough interest and hopefully add enough value that you get to the bottom of the funnel, where then the transformation happens. They become, you go to from dating to proposal to marriage, and then there's a fourth layer, really the very foundation of the funnel, which is retention. Now we're building a life together, and in terms of clients, you are retaining them, you're adding additional value, you're progressing them through your ascension of your products and services, maybe membership, maybe return customers, referrals, whatever that looks like inside of your business and your industry. The very first thing is attention at the top of the funnel. Before anyone can pay you money, they have to pay you attention. And so the goal of marketing is to drive revenue, but the function of marketing is to get attention and captivate people and build relationships. So when you're asking the question, to circle back to the beginning, where do we how do we find our ideal clients? You ask the question, where are they paying the currency of attention? Which means you have to understand the persona.
Interview, I'm putting them into scenario-based questions to where they have to display their competency for the role. And so in that, I'm listening for core behaviors, those core values that I know somebody either is or isn't going to be able to be successful in my environment. The challenge I see most often with really businesses under 50 million, which is everybody on this call, I believe, is that we hire trying to fill a hole or solve a problem with our hires. I can tell you right now that I've never in my career seen a problem solved by throwing a body at it. Just because you have a cold seat doesn't mean you need a warm body to fill it. The better you can be at disciplining yourself when you see a good candidate on paper, not getting too high. Don't get elevated. And also when you see somebody that has a less than stellar looking formatted resume, don't get too low. Reach out to every one of those leads unless it's completely just not even close to being the right fit. But I would encourage you to reach out to every lead, especially in the beginning phases of getting really good at interviewing, because you need the reps. And if you remember what it was like to interview for your last role before taking on an ownership seat, you could have probably used the rep as well. So give them the opportunity to, maybe it's not a great interview, but I would still discipline yourself in going through the muscle building activity of asking the questions, asking the secondary questions, digging into who is sitting in front of me. And then at the end of it, neither one of you have lost. You've gotten a great rep. They've gotten an opportunity to get the marbles out of their mouth of their interview, and they're set up for success for the next great opportunity in their candidate pipeline, if you will. But you have done very similar. You know, if I ask this question, it's not landing the type of answers that I need. So I need to rephrase it, just like you would with a sales script or a leadership script that you're following to lead a great dynamic meeting or lead a sales call. You refine that script, you refine the question that yields you a better answer. So just going through that process, ultimately to figure out, how do I get to the best question? I will also give you kind of this nugget before I throw it back over to AJ. One of the best books that I read, this was probably 3 or 4 years ago when it came out. It's by Trey Gowdy. It's called Doesn't Hurt to Ask. And if you're not a book reader and you're an Audible person, or if you're looking for where's the nuggets, it's between really chapters 4 through 11. That is where you're going to get the most amount of meat out of off that bone of that book. It's really about asking questions, knowing where you're taking the candidate, or in his case, the witness, but really asking the best quality questions that you can to get the best quality answers is going to allow you to make the best quality decisions when it comes to attracting, not only attracting, but developing, and not just developing, but retaining top
Shut
talent in
him
your
up.
business. AJ, back to you.
All right, love it. I mean, you guys drop in the chat for those of you who are on Zoom. Yes or no? Are you getting more value than you would typically expect on a free call? Cody says, in true marketer fashion, completely exaggerated, 100 million%. Love it. Dante says yes, 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 and that's always our goal. And here I want to drop this nugget for free. The reason we do this, a lot of times you won't find this kind of value, and I'm going to completely brag on my team right now, not me, but on them. And Heather's not even on here. This is just 3/4 of the team. The reason that we can give so much value is because we've spent so much time working with business owners just like you and going through these challenges, these problems, answering these questions uh, more times than we can even remember. There's so much depth that goes into growing a business, so many different situations. They can all fall into the same categories, but there's so much uniqueness in the particulars of the same challenge in a different business, the same obstacle with a different person, the same frustration with a different business owner. And we will give away so much on these calls because it still only scratches the surface of what really there is to give you, which is why we have some exciting stuff coming up soon. We'll announce that in the weeks coming to really just continue to give value, and that's part of our mission. Being a business owner is hard, but 80% of the jobs in America are provided by small business owners just like you guys. If all we had was big corporations, our country would fall apart. We would absolutely end up in some kind of hybrid of socialism and communism. It would be horrible. We need small business owners fighting, creating competition, fighting to do better, innovating. And this is about your families. It's about, I mean, Kirk says this really well. If you have a staff of, let's say, 10 people, in reality, those 10 people, on average, you've got two people, spouses or significant others, and you've got, 2.5 kids and a dog. So 10 people that work in your organization is really 50 people that you're impacting. Now take that to 50 employees. Now you're at 200 to 300. Take that to 30, 40 employees. You start to see the impact of what small businesses do and why it's so incredibly important. And that's just my soapbox of our mission and why we do these calls and just drop a tremendous amount of value. So uh, the next question I saw on here from someone was actually from Cody, and the reason this is a great question, and I'm going to go back to what a lot of people don't know is I spent some time working with the gentleman who was the mastermind. He was business partners with Tommy Hilfiger. He was the mastermind behind the launch of clothing lines for Nicki Minaj, J Lo, Mark Anthony, Adam Levine, all the big celebrities who had clothing lines. Many of those he was behind, and through different relationships ended up being business partners with him and learning a lot about that space, but specifically about launching products, how to launch products, how to launch a more expensive product, how to leverage an expensive product against a less expensive product, and a lot of those principles. So Cody's question is, what is the ideal process or timeline for launching new products or services into the market uh, as go live? I'm going to tell you what my old business partner told me. And again, for context, he's in, they're selling $500 pairs of jeans. They're launching entire brands, completely brand new into the marketplace. He said, you have to earn the right to have a second SKU. And for those of you who in your business, you don't use SKUs, a SKU is just a number that identifies a product. So what he's saying is essentially is you have to earn the right to launch a second product. Too many business owners try to have 3, 5 products, services all at once. All your products and services should be intentional, they should be complementary, and there should be purpose in how they work together. So if I'm building, I'll use an illustration of something I know, music. So I've been a musician for a long time, play a few different instruments. If want to build a band, I need percussion to keep timing and rhythm. You want to have strings, whether that's guitars or violins. You might want to have also like a piano for melody. There's a mix of instruments in an orchestra and in a band. What I'm not going to do is just say, well, I got a drummer, so now I'm going to get a kazoo because I like kazoos, and then I'm also going to get someone on to play that wooden scrapey thing because that seems cool, and I'll get a triangle, and then it wouldn't be complete without more cowbell. So I'm going to get that too. I'm going to go and get Will Ferrell. That doesn't make any sense. It's all disjointed, discombobulated. It's chaos. And when they all play together, it will sound like chaos because there's no complement between all of the instruments. It's the same thing in your business. So, Cody, I know you're in the marketing space. What a lot of marketers do is I'm going to run ads for this platform, but now I'm going to launch a installing a sales team, and then I'm going to launch building your websites. It all seems complementary, but is it strategic? That's the other part. It needs to be complementary, but needs to be strategic. And you have to prove the first one. You have to get traction. We talk about 4 phases of growth, and the first phase is foundation. That's your strategy. Who am I selling to? What's their pain? What problem am I solving? Which dictates what I'm selling them. So who am I selling to? What am I selling them to solve a problem, a deep pain for them? How am I going to sell that? How am I going to get the attention? Going back to what the whole marketing breakdown. How am I going to do that? So we'll use the illustration I used earlier, hot dogs. If you're going to sell hot dogs, sell hot dogs. If no one wants to buy a hot dog, they're not going to buy anything else. So you've got to successfully first sell hot dogs. Once you hit a certain point where you've got traction, you're covering your costs, you're profitable with hot dogs, now you can add on drinks. Now you can add on fries, things that are complementary. But if you go from I'm selling hot dogs and now I'm going to sell cotton candy, that makes no sense. You've just gone off the rails. And you see this a lot even in the food industry. A great lesson for all of you, if you haven't done it, go to Prime, Amazon Prime, and watch The Profit with Marcus Lemonis. And you will see business owners making these kind of stupid decisions. One of the challenges that the McDonald brothers had when they launched their restaurants, and Ray Kroc came in and started expanding the franchise, is their restaurants would have all of these items. You would have burgers, fries, fried chicken, collard greens, okra. I mean, Aunt Jemima got in there and started blowing up the menu. It didn't make any sense. So what they did was they stripped it down. We do burgers, we do fries, we do drinks, and then we do shakes. That's it. And that grew into a multi hundreds of billion dollars restaurant. But they had to fight because a lot of people wanted to add things to it. So you can do more with less. Become the best at selling one thing, one product, one service, and then ask the question. This is how you now launch the new thing. I've just laid the foundation for you. This is the intro to the answer to the question. Once you've done that, then ask the question, what else do our clients need? What problem have we exposed by delivering excellence with this one product? For Altru Partners, here's what it looked like. We would just did straight on full on business consulting. We would come in with our team, we would come alongside the business owner, we would get all up in their business, literally and figuratively, and we would start fixing problems, training the team, training their leadership, putting infrastructure strategy in place across every function of the business with our individual expertise. We started to identify a lot of clients who wanted to work with us, or not clients, but a lot of business owners who wanted to work with us were too small in terms of revenue and cash flow. They couldn't afford to pay our minimum $10,000 a month consulting fee because we get in there, we really do the work. We've taken just last year, we took clients, doubled their revenue in a single year, and doubled their taking them from 3 to 5 million and hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit inside of 6 months. So we're good at what we do and we get the return for clients very quickly. But it doesn't matter if that investment is too high. So what we did was we created a second program and we asked the question, what clients have we worked with who couldn't afford that investment, but we still were able to get them results? and we created what we call our phase 4 mentorship program, where we now take the frameworks that we install into every business. There's 8 frameworks that we install. We call our phase 4 operating system. Let's just teach them that and then provide support and guidance so they can do it themselves, but with our help. And that was our second offering. Events that we do, live events, it's for the purpose of reaching people who are further down the line and aren't ready for the next thing. Because if your goal is just money, just sell something expensive. We've seen lots of businesses do that and they suck. They're just saying the money grab. If you really want to help people, then you're always asking the question, what else do they need? How are we not serving them? How can we serve them? And what makes sense so that when we serve them with this new offer, it moves them further, it moves them closer to the bullseye to get them to work with us at the highest level. That's why we do business builders. This is another offering that is free. Because if you're a business owner and you don't have you're $1 million business, your monthly net cash flow is $10,000 or $20,000, unless you're having some real struggles. Well, if you come to business builders and every week we're teaching you how to grow your business and giving you more than you would get at a $5,000, $10,000 coaching program, and then you go and grow your business, you grow your revenue, people always go back to the source of value. So transparently, we want you to take what we teach you in here, go grow your business, come back and tell us and say, hey, how else can I work with you guys? Awesome. Join our phase 4 program. We'll teach you all the frameworks. And then you use that and then you grow your business. And then you say, well, guys, I need more. Fantastic. Let's do full-on consulting. That's the model. So you launch it with that level of intention, and you've got to, I'll borrow from Myron Golden, love your customers so much that you would never sell them something that would do them harm.
Awesome. Well, we're about at time. I want to ask one more question, and I'm going to direct this one at Tim. And this is one of ours. Um, so to just kind of put a bow on our time and land the plane, but I'll ask Tim. So how to be resilient in business as an owner?
I think when we were preparing for this call, this is probably the most important question that business owners struggle to answer. Because not only is it how do you be more resilient, and you guys can add to this, but it's also why you need to be more resilient. Your business, we were talking about it early, every business is broken, and it's a matter of where is that pain point and how quickly can I find the solution. But even more importantly, as an individual, your resilience is the speed at which you can get back to baseline, not only at a personal side and how you interact with your business and the staff and the clients, but also from a stress level side. And so the reason you want to be resilient in how you approach your business and understand that if many things in your business are broken, there's an acceptance and a humility of the fact that, yes, my business has problems. It's okay. I still have clients paying me. I still have employees that want to work with me. I still have clients that want to do more with me. I will find a solution to my problem in time. And it's now identifying what information do I need in order to answer the questions that my business is posing through data or through the fact that I just don't have results, and then finding those solutions. So if you have a teammate that's coming to you and saying something broke, it's okay. A lot of things are broken. Let's figure out what happened. How did I react? Was it positive or negative? And understanding that resilience is how quickly can you get back to baseline and move forward after a setback, and understanding that the goal after you have a setback or after you identify a problem in your business is what comes next? What do I do because this happened? And it's asking lots of questions. As entrepreneurs, whether this is your first business or your 300th business, your job at the top of the business is to ask questions repeatedly, consistently. What happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? And who was at fault? Through those questions, you can understand whether it was a person that failed in the business or a process that was failed. And if it was a person that failed in the business, was it lack of training? Or was it a lack of process that allowed them to skew off of the predetermined path that we've set them on through the training and the onboarding and the culture that we have in the business? Or was it process? Did we just completely veer off because we didn't have guidelines in our business and our process failed? And it's understanding that and it's asking why. How can we fix it? How can we correct it? Resilience is understanding that problems are going to happen and it's okay. And it's identifying as quickly as possible, can I get back to baseline, whether I'm depressed or whether or not I'm super elated because I had a phenomenal benchmark month. Great. If you had a benchmark month, celebrate. Take a day, celebrate. Come back to baseline and say, okay, what happened? Why did I have a benchmark month? How can I repeat it so I can have another benchmark month? Again, as an entrepreneur, you want to be greedy. You want to have benchmark months every single month. But it's also understanding that if you have a benchmark month, that means you have to have growth in other areas of your business to support it, unless you need the benchmark months to cover the overhead that you have in place. So there's always opportunity cost. Because this happened, something else is going to change in my businesses. And it's how quickly can you identify what changed and what needs to change because that changed, and then identify the strategy. And so there's a lot of give and take, but resilience is understanding that your ability, whether in celebration or depression because something truly went bad, how quickly can you get back to status quo and understand, I will find a solution, I will survive. At the end of the day, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a business owner, and I will fix this problem. It will just take more questions. So kick back to Kirk or AJ, depending on the internet, and we'll kind of go see if there's any other wrap-up questions.
All right. Cool. Well, we appreciate you guys. And as always, want to invite you to be on this journey and this really part of this mission and movement with us. If you got value, invite another business owner to come with you next week and get value, because I know you're disappointed. AJ, you didn't make a sales pitch. You weren't pushy. You didn't give us a $9.97 offer. I know. I'm sorry. That's just not what we do on Business Builders. We just want to give value. I know it's not the most profitable business plan, but hey, we figure if we invest in people, you might reciprocate and you might decide, hey, I want to work with you guys to get results like you get for your clients. So that's the craziness by which we operate. We appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for being on Business Builders. Come back next week and we're going to be dropping more value. If you have questions additionally, you can go to YouTube, subscribe there, and you can drop comments when this goes live. We've also emailed you before, so you can always email back with questions as well. And that helps us create amazing content to help you guys scale and grow your businesses. So we'll see you next week on the next episode of Business Builders. Have a good rest of the week.